Should be working. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to this, I hope, most interesting event at Kadir University this morning. My name is Hans-Georg Fleck. I'm the resident representative of Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom in Turkey. Friedrich Naumann Foundation is, and that is the main message from my side to you this morning, Friedrich Naumann Foundation is not the organizer, just the facilitator. The organizer of this event is, as you see, behind me and on the other side, still there, the European Liberal Forum. The European Liberal Forum is an umbrella organization close to the liberal faction in the European Parliament, the so-called ALDE, A-L-D-E party. And this umbrella organization consists of roughly 36 think tanks, civic education organizations in almost every member state of the European Union. And thanks to the funds of the European Parliament, the European Liberal Forum is able to organize events all over Europe. I think on this day we have 3 or 4 events in other European cities ongoing. So it's a very rich program. You can, of course, Google European Liberal Forum and you will find a lot of information about this umbrella organization. Thanks for being with us this morning. Thanks to our moderators, because we will have 2. Soli Özel is bound to leave soon, and we will have a second moderator. And thanks, of course, especially to our lecturers, which will inform us about our main topic. And this morning I got the impression that we might have defined the topic a bit too ambiguous. Of course, we are aware that there is a difference between Greece and Turkey with regard to the relations to the EU. Greece is a member of the EU and is close to Europe by definition, you might say. Whether it is still the case in the upcoming months, we will see, but to this very day, Greece is very close to the European Union in all regards. Turkey is still hopefully on the way to Europe, but we thought that this topic, the way we defined it, is quite a good idea with regard to Turkish foreign policy, Greek foreign policy, and the overarching topic of European integration of Turkey. So that's from my side. I hope you enjoy our session this morning, and please, Soli, take the floor.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Mr. Fleck, Dr. Fleck. The title of the conference, of course, reflects a Kantian optimism, I guess. As you said in passing, yes, Greece may be by definition European, but whether it will be so, it will remain European, whether it will be a European Union country or whether it will be a Eurozone country, is now a hot debate. And I guess the Turks have just suspended their desire to become a member of the European Union until after they take care of their own domestic problems, to which the Europeans had contributed their fair share, in my judgment. 2 colleagues, 2 Greek colleagues, or I can also say, of course, that in this university we are already ahead of almost everyone. Since in a very small department we have 2 Greek colleagues, which we're very happy to have with us. They will first be presenting elite views on Turkey in Greece, and then we will have our discussions with the esteemed Ambassador Volkan Vural and even more esteemed President of Kadir Has, Mustafa Aydın, and certainly more esteemed than the others, Dr. Silvia Kyriaki.
That's for sure.
Huh?
Because I'm in pink element.
Yes. Okay, so please go ahead.
you made the wrong.
What did I do? Okay. We'll fix it.
Well, in this universe, directors works on this kind of thing.
Thank you very much for being here. And as the director of the Center for International European Studies, I am very glad to be working with the European Liberal Forum, Friedrich Naumann Stiftung, and hosting this event. Now, we'll start off. We talked about this. My colleague Kostas Ifandis and I, together with another colleague, another Greek, Andreas Kotelis, who happens to be at Zirve University, we had done a research study. It's okay, I can see. A research study last year on Greek elite perceptions towards Turkey. And I want to present briefly some of the results of that study because I think it's very interesting in terms of maybe our discussion today. We will only be presenting some aspects of the study. I mean, the rationale was that we took a period, a 2008 period, which is the beginning of the economic crisis in Greece, and that how has the impact of the economic crisis had an effect on Greek perceptions in general about foreign policy and about Greek-Turkish relations. Well, as you see on the slide, these are just some of the rationale behind this. And the study was meant to clarify the national role conceptions of the Greek political elite, to assess the power of the national conceptions variable, to explain whether the financial crisis has been instrumental in affecting perceptions towards Turkey, and the context revolves around Greece's downgraded status and prestige, and basically also around Turkey's, excuse me.
It's talking.
Around Turkey's regional emergence and new geopolitical confidence. I mean, that's how at least we had seen it at the time we had applied. It was something else was going on. So the methodology is we looked at 6 different categories of elites: political elite, military elite, diplomatic elite, academic elite, media elite, and business elite. Business elite from the Hellenic Federation of Enterprises, diplomatic correspondents being the media elite and senior news people, diplomats, MFA officials for the diplomatic elite, directorate heads, deputy heads, senior embassy staff, military officers, including high-ranking brigadier generals, and higher, retired in particular, but also some of them still serving, politicians, representatives of the Permanent National Defense and Foreign Relations Affairs Committee and the European Affairs Committee, and academics, in particular those dealing with international relations and in Greek universities. And we actually prepared a survey, closed-ended survey of about 29 questions, where it was sent out to about 522 people, and we had about a 42% response rate across the elites. And there were 3 sets of questions in our survey: Greece's role in the international arena and its influence on the international system and issues of foreign policy was about a third of the questions. The second set of questions had to do with Turkey and Turkish foreign policy, and the third set of questions, which I will talk about today, about Greek-Turkish relations. Now, if we go very quickly through the questions, we shall see that one of the questions we asked if they approve, if the elite approve the rapprochement strategy that has been in place since 1999. And we can see that there is agreement to this high agreement for rapprochement among 63.5% of the elite, which is also something that they totally agree and rather agree across all groups, except maybe for the military elite. But nevertheless, this is the first time we have results of this sort. The second question asked about how the elite identify the state of relations with Greece and Turkey, and most respondents replied, well, 47% is not most, but it was about 15, that they were neither good nor bad. Most of them said this, replied that they were neither good nor bad. So so what we have is about 50% of the respondents identifying as relations being okay, nothing sensational, but relatively okay. The third question had to do with support for Turkey's efforts to become a full member of the European Union. And here we have a rate of about 51.6%, which is about 10 points lower than the support for rapprochement process, but still over 50% support in favor of membership to the European Union. Trust, big question. Whether Greeks can trust Turks, whether the elites trust Turkey. And obviously the numbers are very negative in that sense. Overall numbers between totally agree and rather agree are 11.4%. And this is more or less, I mean, it depends on the groups, but this is something that more or less across all groups, the numbers were negative. Question 24, we asked them whether Turkey's economic growth is beneficial to Greece or not. And here also one can see that those that agreed with that premise amounted to about 40%. The others were not sure or did not think so. And I'll come back to this in a second. And also they were asked then if Turkey's economic development constitutes a threat for Greece, and about 35.6% thought that it did. And I think this has to do with a perceived activism on the part of Turkey, which has not been matched by Greece in times of crisis. Then respondents were asked whether they agree or disagree that Turkish investments in Greece are a threat to Greek national interest. And here it's interesting that about 61.2% disagreed with that. So even though they might see the activism, the economic activism of Turkey in a mitigated fashion, when it had to do with working together and Turkish investments in Greece, the responses were much more nuanced. So it was not viewed necessarily as a threat. And this is maybe a factor we should keep in mind. Then we asked about Cyprus, right? And Cyprus has been in the headlines recently with the election of Mustafa Akinci in the northern part not too long ago, not a week ago. The question was whether the Cyprus question, or how important is the resolution of the Cyprus problem for the improvement of Greek-Turkish relations. And here, if you add together the categories, extremely important, very important, and rather important, 92.2% of the elite seems to suggest that it's important for Greek-Turkish relations. Now, the next question had to do with how probable the respondents consider a crisis between Greece and Turkey during the next 5 years. And we saw that the extremes are very high, extremely likely 4.6%, quite improbable 6.4%, and rather improbable 40.6%. So even here, more of the elites do not think that a crisis is possible. Again, there are fluctuations. I'm not going to get into details among the groups. We can talk about this later. But it was rather improbable, is something one should keep in mind, where 30% think it might be likely. Now, the following set of questions, 4 questions aimed at exploring which of the issues that are at the epicenter of Greek-Turkish relations could be the cause of a future crisis. And we focused on 4 issues. So one is what we called the Aegean issues, and this is how the question was framed. Issues relative to the delimitation, territorial waters, exclusive economic zone, etc. 80.6% thought if there were going to be a crisis, it would be over Aegean issues, right? When we asked them whether the issue of Thrace could be issue stemming from Thrace, the response was much lower. Only 26% thought that Thrace could be a cause of a possible crisis within the next 5 years. Cyprus, about 37% thought so. Still, remember the 80% of the Aegean. And then the last issue we asked, internal developments in Turkey. How could those internal developments in Turkey impact upon, have an impact on a future crisis? And there the numbers were about 69%. So we see out of these four categories, Aegean, internal issues in Turkey, Cyprus, then Thrace. I mean, this is the classification that comes out from the elite perceptions of the relationship. The final question of the survey asked the respondents to indicate which of these four aforementioned issues is the most likely to cause a future crisis. Before they were all asked separately. Here they're put together. And again, Aegean issues was higher, while Cyprus and Thrace were relatively low. So these were the sets of questions that we asked of Greek-Turkish relations and how elites perceive this. Now, let me just talk a little bit about certain assumptions that we've come up based on our survey results. The first is that regarding the post-1999 rapprochement process, a process which I do never tire of saying has brought me here, has brought my colleague Kostas here, my colleague Maria here. I mean, there is something to say as part of this process, as at least for us as Greek academics working in Turkish universities. So there seems to be an acceptance of this, and this is the first time there's hard data available supporting this change in Greece's foreign policy towards Turkey. While we still have, I said this is, I've written on the slide, it's considered, characterized at times as one of appeasement, concessionary, or even as an act of treason. It still is, in part by many, but nevertheless, there's a solid mass of elites that seem to think that this is good. Again, positive support for around 51%, as I said previously, for Greek-Turkish rapprochement, for Turkey's entry, support of Turkey's entry into the European Union. Which I'll get back to this in a second, but it's something to keep in mind that also that factor is important because this has been also the backbone of Greek foreign policy vis-à-vis Turkey. The rapprochement, and I think it also alludes to the question of our event today. Rapprochement for Greece has also meant bringing Turkey closer to the European Union. Now, what is striking is, of course, the result, the data, that Turkey cannot be trusted. And this is an elite perception which seems to be very strong across the board. Obviously, academic elite do not think so much, but political elite, military elite, and others do seem to think so. And this is having an impact on further progress in our relations. Now, the answers to the question concerning trust are also contradictory when compared to the answers about the threat perception from Turkey. So the threat perception is lower than one would assume by looking at the trust levels. And this is something which we should also consider. And also, likewise, when we talk about Turkish investment or Turkey's economic growth, when it comes to Greece, it's not considered to be as problematic as it is Turkey's ambitions to become a trading state or trading power elsewhere. Special mention regarding Cyprus. So the vast majority here, 70% was two categories, 99.2%, the three categories that I mentioned above, consider this to be important. But I should say here, let me just get to my slide because I'm getting ahead of myself. So they show, so maybe given maybe the start for a renewed process, peace process on the island is something we should keep in mind. Here I have categories, let me skip this assumptions on the basis of elite categories. But I want to raise a few issues at the end, food for thought based on these results, and then give the floor to my colleagues. Yes, the high consensus in favor of rapprochement. I spoke about this. The 50+%, not 60+% support for Turkey's full accession to the EU. And the fact that Turkey relations is neither good or bad, the relevance of the Cyprus issue to the improvement of Greek-Turkish relations, the low perception, the threat perception, or the perception of low possibility of crisis, something to be factored in, the categorization if a hot crisis were to occur, where the Aegean, which is also where the crux of efforts between Greece and Turkey have been. I think we are now in 58th, 59th round of exploratory talks between the two countries at foreign ministry level. So it's something to keep in mind. Now, the issue of trust. And this is something maybe we could discuss. The issue of trust, of lack thereof, and how to deal with it. I mean, one argument has been, yes, we are in the midst of a rapprochement process. It has its ups and downs. It means relations are neither good nor bad. They're there. The two sides talk. I just told you that about 59 rounds of exploratory talks between the two foreign ministries. Growing interrelations, growing interconnections, people-to-people contacts, and so on, as well at the trade and economic level. So one argument has been that maybe non-resolution of these issues is one way to continue going forward, right? We cannot resolve them, we keep talking about them, the timing is not there, so let's just continue our relations on that basis. Of course, the question would be, what if there were a resolution on some of these issues? What would that actually mean for Greek-Turkish relations? Because we are used to the fact that relations are neither good nor bad. We are used to the fact that there seems, at least from the Greek perspective, and I suppose if someone were to do a study from the Turkish elites, I think the trust levels would be the same. And maybe our Turkish colleagues could tell us this, talk to us more about this. But what if there were a resolution? Well, how would this impact relations? What dynamic this could create is something to consider. Then the other issue has to do with decoupling regarding Cyprus. What do I mean? Yes, I mean, I see a trend there, and I don't know if my colleague Kostas agrees, between the 92.2% of the elites that consider the resolution of the solution in Cyprus, or finding a solution to Cyprus, as necessary to improve Greek-Turkish relations. On the other hand, in terms of threat perception, or in terms of a crisis breaking out in Cyprus and impacting the two countries, the levels are 4.6%. So is there maybe in the thinking a decoupling among elites? Kostas Karamanlis, when he came to power in 2004, at some stage had talked about decoupling, and then he pulled back. There were articles in the press, and this happened to be a position at least at the foreign ministry. We should focus on our bilateral relations. Pulled back, public opinion is not ready for this, and elite opinion is not ready for this. But I think there's some maturity in the opinions. It's a normal reflex to say that the Cyprus problem is on the top of the agenda, but it's also interesting how the Aegean issues seem to be more of a concern. So this is just something that comes out of this. What about public opinion? Because here we are with what we've explored is elite opinion. What about public opinion? Where does it stand? It's true that if you look, especially over the last few years, at qualitative polls taken, especially by the company Kappa Research that hosted our survey, that does these surveys every 6 months about general trends, foreign policy issues, Turkey, are very low in the agenda. It's the economy, stupid, as Clinton would say, that's right up there, right? So, and that has become the key concern for the electorate, the public, and so on. So it's interesting how these results would be, I mean, where public opinion would stand if the elite were to use or to start moving towards further rapprochement with Turkey on the basis of some of these results. Or because of crisis right now, and Greece feeling that it's being detached from the rest of the world, this might be even less likely. This morning, as I was putting the slide together, I was listening to an interview by one of the opposition leaders who leads this new party, Topotami. He gave an interview a couple of days ago on television, and it was interesting. You know, he was saying, and he was actually saying that not too long ago during Easter, Good Friday, in a village in Thrace, that's he said 100% Muslim village, former military personnel, together with a military guard, had a procession. You know, the procession on Good Friday around that village. Why? Why? And you know, and of course he was laying the blame on the current government's coalition partner, and of course the Minister of Defense coming from there. So we can see how public opinion might not, and of course, how did this come to the fore? This was not out in the news at all, but because that party, very interestingly, has received about 12% of the vote in that district from Greeks that are both Muslim and Orthodox, they came out and said, by the way, something is happening here that we don't like. But public opinion is important in that sense. It's not a priority, it could be, but it's something to keep in mind. Last two things, growing exceptionalisms. This is a topic that's been of concern. I mean, we heard Soli's comments at the beginning, even Hans-Jorge's comments about where Greece is, where it's going, whether it's part of Europe, the EU. The salience of this debate is something that impacts on all Greeks and the elites. The feeling of detachment, of loosening the bonds with the West. The fact that maybe for the first time in our modern history, we feel that we've lost the support of allies and partners. Or maybe we ourselves are withdrawing from there. And in the attempt to withdraw, what is happening is the emergence of Greek exceptionalism to justify the fact that we are alone in the world. In fact, this is part legacy, part history. Geography plays a role. Greece has always been a flank state. Turkey has always been a flank state when it comes to the West. I think some of the things I'm saying about Greece, one could also transplant them to Turkey in that sense. And while we also have this growing exceptionalism here in Turkey, we need to keep this in mind. So this growing exceptionalism in a particular part of the world, one could even add Russia in that sense as a zone of exceptionalisms that's emerging, is a concern. So when we go to the last question, which is the question, the title of this meeting, Greek-Turkish rapprochement leading both countries closer to Europe, big question mark. I said that this is a question that, I mean, this has been the basis upon which Greek foreign policy has been dealing when it comes to Turkey over the last few years. Greece has been supporting the Turkey-EU relations. Greece has been supporting Turkey's EU bid. Yes, mind you, it has its demands upon Turkey, but the premise is we would like to have Turkey closer to us. When we ourselves are doubting our European credentials, we as a society, a lot of the political forces, unfortunately, the rise of populism contributing to this, what does it mean? And it's interesting, I was looking as you know, I presented to you the set of questions dealing with Greek-Turkish relations, but I went back to the survey, and in the set of questions where we asked the elite about Turkey per se, one of our questions was, question 11 was, to what degree do you agree with the following perspective on the foreign policy of Turkey? Turkey should join the EU. There, the same elite responded, 29.7% totally disagree, and 24.7% rather disagree. So the majority of the elite said no. I mean, when you frame the question in terms of Greek-Turkish relations, 51%, I think the numbers were, said they favor Turkey's accession EU bid. But whether it should join, there's still a resistance to it, right? And so Europe has been a glue. On the other hand, as that is being undone, at least from the Greek side, it gives rise to further exceptionalism. And this is in part because the perception of growing Turkish activism at the same period scares the Greek elites. Now, the activism, yes, if you see Turkey, as Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu talks, as a trading state, well, some aspects are okay. And I think what the Greek elite would like is for their own country to be able to do the same thing, right? But if Turkey is viewed more as what another Turkish scholar talks as an unaligned middle super-regional power, Shaban Kardash talks about this, then that activism scares, because you have the emergence of an exceptionalism in Greece matched with an exceptionalism that's developing on its own terms here in Turkey. And I think this discourse about identity, belonging, and so on is having a negative impact. So the danger is that the glue, Europe, which Greece belongs to, and I hope will stay there for a long time and prosper and will overcome its troubles. Turkey aspires to, at least is still there pro forma, but we'll see how much, that as that glue is not as sticky as it used to be, where we have a problem. And maybe it might also be the time to really consider a new sort of discourse on both sides and strategy, or paradigmatic shift on how to replace relations on track. I mean, they are on track, but how to make sure that the rapprochement process is not totally unglued. So this is the basic things I wanted to say, Soli.
Okay.
And thanks.
Well, yes. Yes? Yeah. Well, Dimitri said everything, so I will be extremely brief.
Shall I skip you?
I mean,
No, please.
yeah, of course. I'm not going to refer to the research results as such. There is no point. But let me, because I think Dimitris did not mention that it was a research project awarded and financed by the Hellenic Observatory of the London School of Economics. And he said that, but this is extremely important. It's the first time that we have hard data of this kind, which is a good thing. The bad thing is that we have nothing to compare it to. So we don't know whether there is a change. We don't know. We don't have a trajectory of elite opinion to work on. Let me, and you. I mean, it's obvious. It's not obvious. It's profound that results can be read as quite contradictory, and that's a main problem when you try to write a paper, an academic paper out of it. You can find the whole study at the LSE website. It's published and it's huge. I mean, it's and the details of it. But although it's fascinating that to realize how contradictory the perceptions are. At the same time, it makes our life extremely hard in coming up with an argument. And I've been thinking about it. First of all, and I would like to say just a couple of points, not in any particular order. First thing is that there is no doubt that Greek-Turkish relations have been, or are actually, in the best shape of their history. They have never been better in the last 40 years. Think about it. If you think the trajectory, the crisis trajectory in Greek-Turkish relations, is the first time that we have a time span of 16 years without a crisis. We had one starting from 74. So 74, 77, 83, 87, 95, 99, and now it's the first time that we have got 15, 16 years without a major crisis erupting, political, diplomatic, let alone something that would involve military hardware. So it's, this is the first thing. The second thing is that in these 16 years, what we have, and that I think is implicit in the results that we get, the good, the positive results that we get, is the institutionalization of the relationship. Now, things that before 99 were, you know, very rare, were spectacular, were amazing, now it's part of everyday life. So ministers come and go between the two sides of the Aegean. We've got regular contacts at summit level. There is the strategic partnership arrangement. And this is reflected in everyday life. I mean, the not so young among us remember that UEFA, FIBA, they were not arranging games between Greek and Turkish sides in sports. Now, nothing bad about it. The other thing is, of course, the flourishing of the bilateral tourism trade, which is evident. And although we have an acquis of, let me use a 60s phrase, of peaceful coexistence so far, at least on the Greek sides, there is still the issue of trust. But I think that what we can start talking about in Greece is, I mean, in the past, the debate was whether Turkey was just a regional competitor or an adversary. I would presume that 8 out of 10 would have responded at that time that Turkey is an adversary. Now I think the adversary concept, perception, has lost much of its legitimacy. Of course, there are always the marginalized, ultra-nationalist groups and parts of the population that think Turkey as the adversary of Greece, and that Turks always look towards the West. But I think now we are in a new debate that hopefully will sustain itself and will evolve in a positive way in the next 5 or 10 years. I mean, there are several qualifications for this to happen, but I think now we have moved from the competitor-adversary polarity to friend-competitor polarity. And why I'm saying that? First of all, data supports this, I think. If we look on the data, we can see that there is a growing constituency that would support, that is ready to accept that Turkey can be a friendly neighbor. And you've got public figures coming out strongly towards this. Mayor of Thessaloniki, just last week ago, delivering a public speech, he said that I see Turks as my brothers. It takes a lot of guts to do that. He's a special case, but still. On the other hand, you've got the Minister of Defense, who's organizing processions in Muslim Turkish villages in Thrace, without thinking that the same day, the same night, for the first time after many, many years, many decades, you had a public procession on Good Friday evening in Izmir. So you've got these, and you've got the foreign minister of Greece, who has a particular, let's say, identity. We know him from his books, from his writings, but he's a very clever chap. And I think his latest statements that Greece and Turkey should engage much more seriously in dialogue, it's a very promising sign. So, and I will say one last thing, both countries are in transition. Transition theory means that sometimes when you got countries in transition, you might have a revival of competitive, assertive, aggressive behaviors towards each other. So we have to be very careful during these transition periods. As for Greece, and I will stop here, when Dimitris asked where is Greece going, what came to my mind is a scene from a Bond film. You remember Goldfinger, where in 007 he drives in a narrow alley, fast and furiously, and he sees lights on the other end of the alley, and it's his own sides reflected, so he hits the wall. I think that's where we are now in Greece. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kostas. And now, if you could limit your comments to about 15 minutes so we can have time for question and answer. I'll start with Volkan Vural. Volkan Bey, do you really think that the relations are institutionalized, as Kostas suggested? And if you could also reflect, if you can, if you would, what was really the main cause of bad relations between Greece and Turkey? It strikes me that Cyprus was at the root of it, therefore decoupling I don't think is really possible. And where do you see these things are going in light of the findings of the research? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I regret to inform you that almost in my 40 years career in the Turkish Foreign Service, I was lucky enough not to be involved on Cyprus or Turkish-Greek relations. That has helped me, I think, to keep my sanity. I disagree with the title of our discussion. I disagree with the word rapprochement, because I don't want to get involved in semantics, but rapprochement means, to me at least, a more deeper understanding and sort of a good cooperation. Whereas what I see since 1999 earthquakes, which it was the start of this new process, the earthquakes, the sympathy of the people, is perhaps can be described as restraint on both sides and cooperation where possible. We have, in this process, we have frozen the main issues, and we have tried to work on areas where there is no real controversy, such as trade, such as tourism, such as visas in certain areas, etc. So I mean, and of course investments, especially the Greek investments, in fact, in terms of banks and so forth in the Turkish economy. Whereas the Turkish investments in Greece still remains rather limited. Therefore, what we have today is a situation which, in my view, if not addressed properly, could lead to, unfortunately, to a crisis situation. Here I want to congratulate the Greek elites in identifying areas which could have an impact on Turkish-Greek relations. They identified Aegean issues. I agree that Aegean issues still is one of the main areas of contention between Turkey and Greece. I disagree with Cyprus because, in my view, Cyprus should remain on the high agenda at the top, perhaps not the first place, but on the second place of our agenda, because it was the Cyprus problem that has started to divide Turkey and Greece, and of course created to the lack of confidence between the two countries. The third issue, which they identified the internal questions, I think I want to put an important mark there, because especially nationalism in Turkey and in Greece may have a negative impact on our bilateral relations. Why? Because in Turkey, we have nationalism on ascendancy. The current election period process in Turkey shows even the governing party is bending on nationalism, using more and more nationalism as a tool for winning the elections. And the Nationalist Party is gaining some percentage points from the AKP government. So nationalism is an important question. And I think these issues, and especially in Greece, the current economic situation, impasse, relations with the West, EU, and so forth, has already fed nationalism and probably will continue to do so. So all these emotions, feelings may, if they find a way, may creep into our bilateral relations in one form or another. And there are potential problems. The potential problems, or real problems, are mainly on the Aegean side. We have not been able to identify our territorial waters. I mean, there's a 6-mile exercise, but there's no agreement on that. If Greece wants to raise the territorial waters to 12 miles, then almost 90% of the Aegean Sea will be close to Turkey. Therefore, one has to find a solution to the question of territorial waters, the limitation of the territorial waters. Similarly, it's not as acute as in the past, but continental shelf is an important issue. And we haven't found a solution to that issue. Secondly, we have a problem of militarization of the islands. This is not as acute as in the past, but still there's a problem there. Militarization of the eastern Aegean islands. Some of the islands were militarized, we know that. And of course, this is contrary to the Treaty of Lausanne and the Paris Agreement, 1947. We haven't solved the status of the geographic, formations on the Aegean island. I mean, there are certain formations which are not, we don't know which country owns them. And this issue is still unresolved. We have the issue of flight information region. The Greek declaration of use of 10-mile airspace is, again, a controversy. And sometimes it raises problems, especially within our military forces, air forces. And we have, unfortunately, no incident has taken place so far important, but we have a search and rescue operations on the high seas, on the Aegean Sea, and we don't know which country will be responsible for that search and rescue operations. There's a Hamburg Treaty Convention on that, and it says that if there's no agreement between the two countries, there must be a coordination. I think there's no coordination at the moment on search and rescue operations on the Aegean Seas. So we have frozen all these issues. Despite 57, 59 round of talks between our foreign offices, I think these issues were not resolved. And I don't see any government, neither in Turkey nor in Greece at this moment, to address those issues. When I look at from the Turkish perspective, I see no interest in Turkey in addressing these issues because these are not on our priority list. Turkey has, for some time, at least few years, has forgotten the EU process, has forgotten the West, has forgotten the Turkish-Greek. It's not on our agenda. It's not on the agenda of the Turkish elites today, the Turkish-Greek relations. We have other preoccupations at this moment. And if there is no, unfortunately, it will never take place, but if there is no accidental happening, I don't think it will be on the agenda for the coming years. So, but if here it comes, it's very important, if on the elections on 7th of June in Turkey produces, I don't know, a result which will lead to a review of Turkish foreign policy, then I think a new government, new formation in Turkey has to address those issues. Perhaps reorient Turkey towards the EU and towards relations with Greece. But this is if and when, and I don't know whether it will happen or not. If the current situation continues, I think we will continue to be preoccupied with the Middle East and with the Islamic countries and so forth, which so far has not led much positive results. So I am I don't want to be pessimistic, but I want to put a caution mark on optimism on Turkish-Greek relations, because we have not really addressed the main questions. They are all there waiting, and hopefully no accident takes place. But we are leaving everything to chance. And the nationalism in both countries is surging, and that kind of nationalism, in my view, is dangerous. It can utilize any form of dispute for its own purposes. So we have to be very, very careful there. The trust issue, you have raised the trust issue. I think probably the same is true for the Turkish elite or for the Turkish population. I mean, it's not different. Turkish success story, economic success story, today we are not referring to that much because it's not taking place. I mean, this was a period which has ended, and we have to start writing a new success story, which is not written yet. So we have to move in that direction, and that waits for the outcome of the elections on June 7 elections. June 7 elections will be crucial for Turkey. Will be crucial not only as an election, but as a choice between democracy and a rule, authoritarian rule. So this is very important, and we know that peaceful relations among countries depends to a large extent on how the countries are ruled, either by democracy or through authoritarian tendencies. Those tendencies may utilize the problems that are there for its own purposes. So this is the thing which I want to remind. And I think we have to work together. We have to defeat the challenges, but we should not hide we should not put everything on the freezer. We have to open the door of the freezer and start solving, really solving, the crucial issues between Turkey and Greece. Cyprus, and there's a hopeful sign that Mr. Akıncı has been elected as president. It's a very positive signal, in my view, for a peaceful solution of the Cyprus problem. And I think we have to use that opportunity, both Greece, Turkey, and the Cypriots, Greek and Turkish Cypriots, use this opportunity. If that is resolved, if the Cyprus question is resolved through a federal state and so, then I believe it will have a huge impact, psychological at least, on the Turkish-Greek relations. It will open the way for Turkey to the EU accession process. At least the Greek Cypriots will lift certain of the blockage on chapters and so forth. At least it will give a normalization in the Eastern Mediterranean, which is helpful to every country, both countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Just very quickly, until now, and most recently and most critically, in 1996 during the Imya-Kardak crisis, NATO, or at least the United States, had been very effective in taking us from the brink. Can NATO still play the same type of role if the worst case scenario that you've alluded to takes place? Or is NATO less important or less effective today?
I think NATO's at least political will and capability has weakened over the years, and I don't think it will be able to play the same role as it played before, because NATO has lost a certain credibility over the years.
Director, the turn is yours. Is the message of the presentation too optimistic? Do you share Volkan Ural's concerns? Where to start if we're going to unfreeze the situation or the relations?
Okay, thank you, Soli. Being a pessimistic person, I have to be pessimist, so I'll share part of what Ambassador said. Let me start going by what I thought during the presentation, and then I'll come, where can we start? First of all, I'd like to thank the both of friends doing this survey. It's important to have data. Without data, we are just talking about our experiments, and that's not always helpful. Of course, the problematic here is this is the elite perception. And as far as my experience is that in most of the countries, elites are always in the wrong. They don't really perceive what the people in general think. And most of the time, we do surveys in this country, and we regularly found out every year that our own elites have different agenda, totally different agenda than the general people's agendas and what they think. So I think we have to go deeper and talk to the people in Cyprus, in Greece, and in Turkey to get better understanding of what the general feeling in the countries. But nevertheless, I think this is a good start. And also, in terms of Greek-Turkish relations, elite has been part of the problem. I would say more so in Greece than Turkey, but that might be biased approach. But in Greece, my perception, having visited there several times, spent quite a lot of time in Greece. My perception is that the elite in Greece is, and I think this is the most of the Turkish elite shares this perception about the Greek elites, is that Greek elites are very tightly connected with the state position on Turkey. Whereas in Turkey, you would find different ideas, different views. In Greece, it's much more closer, let's say, not connected, but closer to the state position on Turkey. So I believe the elite was a part of a problem in this process. But seeing that it has changed its view, it's very important. I think it shows this rapprochement process, whether we like the wording or not, it seems it's working. And I suspect if there is a survey on the popular level, it might come up with even better results or more support for the rapprochement than even on the elite level. That's my personal observation. But it seems that this rapprochement is working. On the other hand, I am a kind of a person, I hate things that are slow. This is a rapprochement, the process is killing me, just watching it. You can die just watching it. You said 59 meetings. I lost count after 20, and I don't know what people are talking in those meetings. 59 meetings to talk the same old issues we all wrote books about. When I was a student at the university, we were taught in international law course every intricate small detail of the negotiations between Turkey and Greece and the problem. So I even today remember almost everything. It was a very important part of the course, and I'm sure it was quite the same in Greece. And several books are written about the territorial waters, overflying rights, and the islands, islets, or whatever, or formations. So what people are still talking about? I suspect what they are doing is slowing the process, taking the time, and hoping that the things will solve themselves. It won't. They won't. That's the problematic part. No major crisis in 16 years. Yes, but are we losing the momentum? Hoping that in time people will become much more friendly and they will solve the problem doesn't solve the problem. The problems have to be solved by the elites. And when I say elites, the diplomats or politicians or whatever who negotiated in those meetings. So my fear is this slow approach might lead to losing of the momentum of the solution, and then we might come back to problematic areas again. As people here, when they ask, their expectations about a conflict in Greek-Turkish relations, they put quite a high mark on domestic developments in Turkey. And I suspect same would happen if we survey the Turkish elite. They would think that domestic developments in Greece might cause a next crisis. I think that's the really problematic part. Because you ask a question, Soli, what is the root cause of the problems? The ambassador, I took a note. It's the history and nationalism. It's not Cyprus. It's not Aegean. It's the nationalism of both countries which are clashing. The nationalism of Greeks and the Turks define themselves against each other, among others. So I don't believe that if we don't tend the process, just leave it for itself, everything will. I don't believe that everything will be fine if we just do that. We have to continuously work on this process, and that leads me another problem. This and trust issue is actually related to this. Okay, Greek elite doesn't trust the Turkish Turks, and I'm sure Turkish elite doesn't trust the Greeks. But nothing is being done to address this problem. Okay, exploratory talks of 59 meetings doesn't mean anything for the people. It doesn't build the trust. There is no European-funded project. There is no Turkish foreign ministry or Greek foreign ministry funded project, or no prime ministry funded project to build trust between Greece and Turkey. Turkey is not implementing any project, such project in Greece, for example. We are not reaching out to the Greek people ordinary people, to tell them that we are nice guys. You know, trust us. The same goes for the Greece. You know, Greeks don't do the same. So if we don't do this kind of things, how are we expecting that trust is going to be built? Is it going to be built from the fact that people are meeting behind the closed doors and we are not fighting in 16 years? I don't think so. It doesn't happen that way. And if I look the history of Greek-Turkish relations, 1930s was the exception that proves the rule. We continuously have a conflict with each other, right from the beginning of Greek independence or even before that. So, you know, this 16 years also, I think, is another exception, might be another exception, unless we tend the process. And one another problem is not only that we are not developing new new connections, areas of connections between two societies, but we are also weakening some already existing mechanisms, right? We are, 4 of us are members of Greek-Turkish Forum. Like exploratory Turks, we meet every 3-4 months to say hi to each other, have good coffee, good company, discuss everything under the sun, but do nothing about Greek-Turkish relations, right? But that mechanism, that mechanism was important at one time. And instead of, you know, strengthening it, the governments are, you know, doesn't care about it, and it's being weakened. So we are not establishing new ones, and we are weakening the old ones. So what's, I look from the pessimistic side. Looking at the results, of course, I disagree with Dimitris in his metaphor of Europe as a glue for Greek-Turkish relations. There are people in Turkey, they say anchor. Dimitris said glue is the same thing. When Turkey and Greece started to connecting with the European Union, the idea was to use it against each other. Right? The original idea was not to become a European. It was to use it against each other. I know it's a perennial question in Greece whether the Greece is Eastern country or Western country, and we know it's a perennial question in this country. Being European, if we call ourselves all European, it will put us in the same room. And being in the European Union doesn't mean European at all anyway. Whether we are European, that's a personal choice. I think we are all Europeans. So what? Does that mean that I will love all the other Europeans? It's a modern notion, but it's a perception also. It doesn't come from the reality. Decoupling of Cyprus and Aegean, I think these are quite important, and the most hot issue between Greece and Turkey, I believe, is the territorial waters issue. Everything touches it. It's the border issue. This has been the real problem between the nations from the time immemorial. The borders, nations and the states go to fight because of their borders. That's the most dangerous issue. All the other problems are linked to it. Cyprus was just one of the problems that come out, and now Cyprus is contained. It's overly internationalized. Okay, there are armies on the island, but they are not intending to fight each other. I don't see Turkish side wanting to conquer more territory in Cyprus. And I don't see Greek Cypriots or Greek army in Cyprus trying to regain what they lost militarily. That's not there. People are not talking, people are not thinking about that. So Cyprus is much contained, even though it's on the headlines. There is an international interest. Everybody wants negotiations, love this limelight and the photographs, etc. That's why it's on the agenda. But Cyprus, I don't think Cyprus is the hot issue. Greece and Turkey will not be fighting over Cyprus, but they might be fighting over the territorial waters, over the definition of the areas and national areas in the Aegean. That's the national interest. So we have to tend to that. And there is no improvement there. After 59 meetings, we have not solved yet the problem. And there is no interest, I think. The ambassador said that it's not in the agenda. It's not in the agenda, sure, and I don't think there is an interest. People got comfortable. The fact that there is no crisis in the last 16 years made people comfortable. They think that we can live with the problems forever. But it takes, remember, 16 years ago, right? It took a fate of a small ship, capsized, was it right? Figanakat, by the grounded by an islet. EMEA, Greeks called it. We called it Kardak, and we almost went to the war. Right? It's not by intentional, but it could happen again. So that's the most hot issue, I think. Coming to the title, Rapprochement leading to Europe, I also disagree. Rapprochement, not only rapprochement, even the solution of Greek-Turkish problems, final solution, will not take Turkey and Greece to Europe. That's one side. And I believe it's the Turkey's European road are dependent on other more important issues than solving the Greek-Turkish problem. And Greece's road to Europe was never tied to rapprochement with Turkey anyway. They become member when we had a big problems. Continue to be member when we have a big problem. So it's not together with hand in hand to Europe. We have separate roads, and I think Turkish EU, again, it's not on the agenda of Turkey, but when it comes to the agenda of Turkey, Turkish-German relations and Turkish-French relations would be much more important to Turkey's European road than Cyprus or Greece. Thank you. Do we have another question?
Not yet.
No, okay.
Well, last but not least, Sylvia Tiryaki. Is Cyprus contained?
Well, I mean, definitely if we are comfortable in Turkey-Greece relations because of no major crisis in the last 16 years, then we are very comfortable in Cyprus because of no major crisis there for 41 years. And perhaps, I mean, the answer to your question would be it's not as contained as we might think, but definitely up to certain degree, yes. But it's frozen, so. But before I delve completely into Cyprus issue, I would like to echo something what was said a couple of minutes ago, and that's about how to say. Mustafa said, like, how to say we are good and nice guys. How Turks can say to Greeks that yes, we are good guys, and vice versa. I think the answer is in education. I think the answer is in changing syllabuses, at least of the primary schools, and basically the curricula of those generations who are here to come. I think if elites in both in Turkey are supposed to do something with this almost 60 meetings, and if there is nothing else to do, which obviously is the case, I think all of us should get focused on the education, as they did in Germany and France, as they did in Balkans, as Talat tried to do in TRNC when he was elected. Then I mean the syllabus is changed back to more nationalist and the unilateral, let's say, approach to historical narratives. But I think unless we do that, and I think it's a good starting point, we are just talking in vain, and it will stay always in the elites circles. Why the Cyprus has been included into this panel? I think there are three main and good reasons for this. First of all, because the relations between Greece and Turkey have been poisoned by the Cyprus problem. Also because Turkey's EU membership, and we are talking about EU, has been linked to Cyprus. the chapters, majority of chapters which are frozen, which cannot be open, and none of them can be closed. The negotiation chapters, they have been frozen or, yeah, by Republic of Cyprus or because of Cyprus, except of a couple of them frozen by or put on hold or stalemated by France. And last but not least, because Turkey and Greece are guarantor powers of Republic of Cyprus. And having said this, although Greece has not been really willing to play a very active role in the Cyprus issue, at least until recently, and even now, I mean, the only action that is in the newspapers and so on taken by Greece is the consortium, I call it, I don't know how to call it, alliance, consortium or whatever of Egypt, Greece and the Greek Cypriots. But this doesn't mean that if at the official level, if the Greece was not present, at the semi-official level or track to diplomacy, our Greek partners have not been interested in. And I was very happy when you told me that Paulina was supposed to be here. Paulina, my center has been the Global Political Trend Center has been conducting bicommunal talks between Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots since 2008, and we have been putting together not only Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots, either decision makers or people very close to the decision-making circles, but also our friends from Greece, Paulina and Philippos Savides. They have been actually the sine qua non of this bicommunal talk since 2008. So having said this, yes, I mean the Cyprus is definitely linked directly or indirectly to this Greek-Turkey relations. Now, I was also told before this panel started that actually Cyprus was included mainly because it hit the headlines, that the Northern Cyprus, the TRNC elections hit the headlines recently. And again, then what we are talking about are basically the domestic developments. And as Mustafa said, I mean, domestic developments in certain country or one country or another, there are always elections, right, in one of the countries. So there are always the domestic developments. They are always referred to as a key to solution or resolution of the issues. But in this case, I would, and in all other cases, I would definitely. I would be prone to cautious optimism. Although the Mustafa Akinci victory in the presidential elections raised the hopes, or it was portrayed as the hopes should be actually raised in international community for the fast resolution of the Cyprus problem. I mean, you know, all presidents in both sides, Turkish Cypriot side and Greek Cypriot side, they've been claiming that they were pro-solutions. So basically, Greece is pro-solution, Turkey is pro-solution, another guarantor power, Great Britain is pro-solution. It depends on what kind of solutions we are talking about. And I think that Mr. Akinci became popular because of his approach to Varosha issue. This issue is nothing new on the table either. It was raised by the Talat administration unilaterally in Brussels years ago, and it has been on the table for some time as CBM, as confidence building measure. How I see the whole situation is that the team, you know, leaders are coming and going. They have been all possible and impossible combinations of leaders in Cyprus, and we haven't moved almost anywhere. Perhaps the closest to solution we were when Talat and Christofias were in the office. They had prepared a list of convergences and divergences. This list is available. If there is a willingness both on Turkish Cypriot side and on Greek Cypriot side, they can pick up these divergences and convergences, and they can start from that. Also, Erolu and Anastasiades, they could do that. They did not, and I think that slight reason behind that is not that the convergences and divergences were there was something wrong with the list. What was wrong was that it was not prepared by them. So basically, in some parts of the world, leaders, upcoming leaders, are more jealous about the achievements of the previous leaders. And I wish in Cyprus there is something like something similar to Norway's political culture adopted. I just came back from one conference in Abu Dhabi, and there was a person from Norwegian foreign ministry, and he was just explaining me how he is preparing the file for the new foreign minister from the old foreign minister. So basically, the new foreign minister can follow up, and how even though when there is a change in the political parties and they don't like each other, it doesn't matter. There must be a continuity. I would like to see such a continuity, for instance, not only in Turkey. I don't want to speak on behalf of Greece, but definitely in Cyprus that would help. My hope is Özdil Nami, who was named the chief negotiator of Turkish Cypriot side, because he was the person behind these convergences and divergences, and he on the Turkish Cypriot side, and he knows them by his heart. So yeah, I'm a bit sad that he cannot be foreign minister, that this dual function was not approved, because in the beginning, it was thought that he could go ahead with being foreign minister and the chief negotiator at the same time. Greek Cypriot side, namely Anastasiades, he agreed with that, but that was not the case. But still, I think that it might be instrumental. He might be instrumental in moving the things ahead. Of course, are there any sticking points? I said that divergences and convergences list is there. We know exactly what the convergences are. In case of divergences, yeah, there are some sticking points. What are the main issues? Basically, single citizenship and nationality. Me personally, I would be a bit cautious here. I don't know how healthy it is to have both single citizenship and nationality in country. If we talk about the reunified Cyprus, in country as Cyprus is, where we have Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots, two different languages, two different backgrounds, and so on. Why I'm telling this is because I was born and I grew up in Czechoslovakia. And I know that that's not, and we have one citizenship and two nationalities. And I think it was very healthy. I know that it was not according to European standards later on, and it was not approved under the, let's say, the new setup. But I don't think that that's necessarily a very bad solution to countries, to federal countries, where you have two different nations, basically. I know that that's not how it is said. The world nations is not used in this context. Cross-voting is another sticking point, and the rotating presidency. I think all this can be overcome. Me personally, I don't see any problem on the table. I think that everything has been discussed. Each side knows what exactly should be done, how much sacrifices or how much compromise it takes. And I think the only thing which is necessary is a goodwill on both sides. Therefore, and don't get me wrong, I'm not completely against CBM. Yeah, I'm not completely against confidence building measures, but I don't understand why we should start with the confidence building measures at the point when everything has been discussed already, when we exactly know what the other side should do, and when the plan basically is on the table. So exchanging or making the, let's say, this, how do you call it? This alishverish, I don't know how to put it, between give and take between, thank you, that was funny, by the way, between Varosha and opening of the port of Famagusta and to international trade, and opening the port of Ercan to international traffic. This will be done anyway. Yeah, so I don't want to. This will be done anyway within the comprehensive settlement, within the comprehensive solution. If it helps to do this, if it helps to speed up the way towards the comprehensive settlement, if this is done before the final talks resume, or before the final talks are actually in place, then it's okay. What I'm afraid of, that it's something which is having a potential to be portrayed or to be seen as an achievement good enough not to get further focus on the final settlement talks. Something very similar to Greek and Turkey relations, that you become too comfortable and then you stop basically paying attention to the main topic. Finally, the EU factor in all this. It's being said that the final Cyprus solution should be within the EU parameters. Definitely, acquis communautaire should be adopted in the north. They are pending for the time being because of the Protocol 10, which was attached to the Treaty of Accession from 2004. I think that's something what can be done for the time being. I think that the Turkish Cypriot side, the TRNC, can be allowed or should be allowed to start adopting acquis communautaire before the solution. I don't think that this should be hindered. I don't think this should be blocked. And my final point is, if I'm talking about, or since I'm talking about EU and what shouldn't be hindered and blocked, I mean, I would be so happy to see chapter 23, 24, and 26 of negotiation process to be unblocked. They are blocked purely by Republic of Cyprus, and I think it would be for the benefit of everyone, Greek Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots, Turkey, the entire European Union, if the chapter 23, 24, and 26 are unfrozen, unblocked. Thank you.
There is plenty on the table for the two presenters to respond to, but we'll do that after the break, and Yalçın İnanç is going to take over. Thank you. We have a half an hour coffee break.